Rock of my soul in the bosom of Abraham, rock of my soul in the bosom of Abraham, rock of my soul in the bosom of Abraham, oh, rock of my soul. So high you can't get over it, so low you can't get under it, so wide can't get around it, gotta go in through the door. Hey Pilgrims, Pastor Craig, Horton Congregational Church. And as you can see behind me, I'm on the sunrise side of the state. Excuse me, out here at Lake Huron early in the morning. Sun beat me up today, but that's okay, because what I want to take a look at is the vastness of Lake Huron. Those of us who are fortunate to have grown up in or reside in Michigan and close to the shores of one of the Great Lakes, and you can come and see these freshwater seas. You know, my wife Lori grew up in Kansas, a long ways from anything like this. She can still remember the first time she saw this. And when we explain how big the Great Lakes are to people who don't have any idea, they say, well, you really can't see across them? I can't believe there's a lake you can't see across. But those of us who are a little more familiar with them know that the vastness of these Great Lakes is pretty phenomenal, pretty mind-bending, pretty impressive. And that song that I just sang to start out with is an old spiritual from the slave days. And as we talk about that wonderful imagery that is in there, it gives us an idea of what it is Christ does for us in our slavery to sin, and can set us free from that bondage, free from that. So let's talk about the imagery that's in there. That rock of my soul in the bosom of Abraham, what is that speaking of? Well, we find Jesus telling the story in Luke 16, if we look it up there. He's telling about the rich man and Lazarus. The rich man doesn't have a name, and Lazarus is kind of used just as a generic. It's not meant to be the same Lazarus that Jesus raised from the dead later in his ministry, right before his crucifixion and final trip into Jerusalem. This is a generic kind of name. It's a story about the rich man and Lazarus. It seems the rich man was dressed in purple, which represented royalty, someone very important, and dined in fine meals day after day. Lazarus, in the meantime, was a poor man that sat at the door of the rich man's house and was covered with sores and had no money to get them treated, had no one to take care of him. And it was so bad the dogs would come and lick his sores. Is that disgusting or what? And as the rich man feasted, Lazarus longed to be fed by simply the scraps that fell from his table. Well, it seems that both of them died. Lazarus was carried away to what is called the bosom of Abraham that we hear in that song, and the illustration is of that nirvana, that land of heaven, if you will, that is prepared for us. And we'll talk about a little bit the imagery that gets us there. But the rich man in the meantime went to Hades, or the land below, and was in torment there, great torment. And he looked all afar off, and he could see Lazarus in the bosom of Abraham. That, again, the imagery with that old spiritual being heaven, being now embraced by the love of God. And the rich man is in torment in Hades, and he asked Abraham, he says, send Lazarus to me just to dip his finger in the water and touch my tongue, because I'm in so much torment here. And Abraham answers and says, now think about this. He said, in your life on earth, you received all kinds of good things, and you enjoyed them, and we have to assume a little bit he wasn't very good at sharing those because of the plight of Lazarus at his door. And he said, so Lazarus in his life received nothing but evil, and now he's in comfort here, and you're in torment there. And he said, besides that, there's a great gulf, or a great chasm between us that no one can pass back and forth. So the rich man, finally coming to his senses, says, well, then send Lazarus to my brothers who are still alive and warn them. And Abraham says, they have Moses and the prophets to warn them. And if they won't listen to Moses and the prophets, they won't listen even if I should send someone from the dead. Kind of a foreshadowing of the sending of Jesus Christ. Again, Jesus is telling this story, so he's trying to illustrate to the people they need to be listening to what's going on, because if they don't believe now, chances are they won't believe even if someone such as Jesus should rise from the dead. So that's what that first part of that spiritual is about, is rock of my soul in the bosom of Abraham. Lord, protect my soul for eternity and pull it into yourself, that I might spend forever with you. That's that rock of my soul in the bosom of Abraham. So what about that So high we can't get over it, so low you can't get under, so wide can't get around it. Well, that's what I think of when I go to the shore of one of the Great Lakes and see that great expanse. And that shows the expanse of God's mercy, the expanse of God's love. Romans 8, Paul says, neither life nor death, nor principalities, nor things present, nor things future, nor height nor depth can separate us from the love of God. This expanse of this great lake ought to remind us of the expanse of God's love and mercy for us. The psalmist in Psalm 139 says, whither shall I go from your spirit? I cannot flee from you. If I should take up the wings of morning, which is why I wanted to record this video in the morning, the sun over here on the corner, I've not given you the full shot of the sun, it'd blank out all of my screen. But should I take up the wings of the morning and fly to the furthest sides of the sea, even there thou art with me. That's my message this morning, folks. No matter where we go, no matter what we do, if we rely upon Jesus Christ and his saving grace, the love and mercy of God is poured upon us. We can't get away from it. It envelops us. Pray for that love of God will envelop your being and hold you close. You can't run from it. There's that prevenient grace that we talk about that continues to tug at the heart and move from prevenient grace to saving grace, accept Jesus Christ as your Savior. And then through the promises of his word, we know that we move on to that sanctifying grace that will give us the love of God, fully enveloping us, fully indwelling us. The expanse of Lake Huron reminds us of the expanse of God's love. Be blessed today. Have a great weekend.